the solitary veteran, intended to spend Christmas alone, until a destitute alien woman showed up with her children. Part 1: Silent Night. Cole had not spoken to another person in 19 days. He counted them on the calendar that hung beside his kitchen window. Each morning, he crossed off another day with a red marker. He was not sure why he did this. Perhaps it made him feel like time still meant something. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road that became impassable every winter. His grandfather had built it 70 years ago, back when Montana still felt wild and empty. Now, in December of 2147, 20 years after humans had made first contact with alien life, the cabin felt like the last quiet place in a very loud universe. Was 58 years old. His hair had turned gray at the temples, and deep lines marked his face like rivers on a map. His left arm ended just below the elbow, replaced by a prosthetic made of dark metal and synthetic muscle. The arm worked well enough. It could hold a coffee cup. It could chop wood. It could not feel warmth or cold or the touch of another person. He had lost the real arm on a planet called 442b during the HFY War. He had lost other things there too. 30 soldiers had served under him. He was their sergeant. He was supposed to bring them home. He brought home 7. The HFY was a coalition of alien species that believed the galaxy belonged to them. When humanity spread beyond Earth, the HFY decided to stop them. The war lasted 8 years. Humanity won, but winning felt like losing when you counted the graves. Did not like to think about the war, so he had built a life where he did not have to. He bought supplies in November, enough to last until spring. He read old paper books. He chopped wood. He drank whiskey by the fire and watched the flames until his eyes grew heavy. Sometimes he dreamed about his soldiers, about the sound of plasma fire, about screaming that never seemed to stop. On those nights, he woke up reaching for a rifle that was not there. This was his 6th Christmas alone. His wife had left after the 4th one. She said she could not compete with ghosts. Did not argue, she was right. On December 23rd, the weather reports warned of a major blizzard. Watched the gray clouds roll over the mountains and felt something like satisfaction. The storm would seal him in. No visitors, no obligations, just silence and snow and the comfortable weight of solitude. He secured the shutters. He brought extra firewood inside. He filled pots with water in case the pipes froze. By evening, the snow was falling so thick that he could not see the tree line from his porch. Made dinner, canned soup and bread he had baked himself. He ate by the fire, reading a book about ships and the sea. Outside, the wind howled like something alive and hungry. He was halfway through his 2nd glass of whiskey when he heard the sound. It was not thunder. Had heard thunder in every corner of the galaxy. This was different. This was metal screaming. This was a vessel coming down hard and fast, tearing through trees, fighting gravity and losing. Then came the impact. The cabin shook. Snow fell from the roof in sheets. Sat very still. His heart beat fast in his chest, the old soldier waking up inside him. He knew he should stay inside. The storm was deadly. Whatever had crashed was not his problem. He had earned his quiet life. He had paid for it in blood. He sat there for 10 minutes, arguing with himself. Then he swore loudly, put down his whiskey, and reached for his thermal coat. The cold hit him like a fist when he opened the door. The wind drove snow into his face, and he could barely see 3 feet ahead. He pulled on his goggles and grabbed the old service rifle from beside the door. He had not fired it in years, but some habits never died. Finding the crash site took almost an hour. He followed the trail of broken trees, the smell of burning fuel cutting through the clean scent of snow. His prosthetic arm did not feel the cold, but his flesh arm ached down to the bone. The ship was small, a civilian shuttle maybe 30 feet long. Design he recognized. They were a peaceful species, tall and thin with skin that shimmered like pearl. They had stayed neutral during the war, which meant the hegemony had conquered them without resistance. Now they belonged to the enemy, and their people scattered across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. The shuttle had torn a deep groove through the forest before wrapping itself around a massive pine tree. The cockpit was crushed. No one could survive that impact. Was about to turn back when he heard the sound. A voice, weak and thin, almost lost in the wind, coming from behind the wreckage. He circled the ship, rifle ready. His eyes scanned the snow, the trees, the shadows. Old training took over. Check corners, watch for movement, trust nothing. He found them huddled against a fallen log, half buried in snow. A woman clutched two small children against her body. Her thermal cloak was torn and soaked with blood. Silver blood, he noted. Bled silver. The larger child was maybe 8 years old in human terms, staring at with huge dark eyes full of terror. The smaller one hung limp in the woman's arms, unconscious or dead. The woman saw his rifle. She tried to move to shield her children with her broken body. Her voice came out in a whisper, rough with pain and fear. "Please," she said in broken English. "Not hegemony, please, my children, please." Looked at them. A dying woman, two freezing children, refugees probably, running from the same enemy he had fought 20 years ago. He thought about his warm cabin, his whiskey, his solitude. He thought about 30 soldiers he could not save. Slowly, he lowered the rifle. He knelt in the snow so he was level with the woman's eyes. "I am not hegemony," he said. His voice sounded strange to him, rough from weeks without use. "I am the man who is going to get you out of this cold. Can you walk?" The woman stared at him. Something shifted in her dark eyes. Not trust, not yet, but hope. The smallest, most fragile kind of hope. "I will try," she whispered. Took off his thermal coat and wrapped it around the unconscious child. The cold bit into him immediately, but he ignored it. He lifted the small body carefully, feeling how light it was, how fragile. "Hold on to your mother," he told the older child. The boy nodded, his face pale with fear but his jaw set with determination. Together, slowly, painfully, they walked into the storm. The wind screamed around them. The snow tried to bury them. His lungs burned and his legs ached, and the cold crept deeper with every step. But he kept walking, one foot in front of the other, the way he had walked across battlefields, the way he had carried wounded soldiers through enemy fire. Some things you never forgot. The cabin appeared through the snow like a dream, pushed open the door and warmth rushed over them. He set the unconscious child on the couch near the fire. The older boy helped his mother inside. She collapsed against the wall, leaving a smear of silver blood on the wood. Closed the door against the storm. He looked at the 3 aliens in his living room, the woman bleeding, the children shivering, all of them looking at him like he might save them or kill them, and they were not sure which. He had no idea what he was doing. He had not touched another living being in 2 years. But he was a soldier, and soldiers did not leave people to die. "Okay," he said quietly, "let us get to work." The solitary veteran intended to spend Christmas alone, until a destitute alien woman showed up with her children. Part 2, The Stranger at the Gate. Worked through the night. He had almost forgotten how it felt to have a purpose. First, the unconscious child. A little girl, he thought, though he was not certain how to tell with. Her skin was cold and had lost its pearl-like shine. Her breathing was shallow and fast. Hypothermia, probably. Maybe worse. He wrapped her in every blanket he owned. He heated water bottles and placed them around her small body. He pulled the couch closer to the fire, close enough that the heat would soak into her. Throughout it all, the older boy never left her side. He held his sister's hand and whispered to her in their own language, words did not understand but recognized anyway. The language of fear. The language of "please do not leave me." Then the mother. Her name was, she told him. The wound on her side was deep and ugly, torn open by metal during the crash. Silver blood had soaked through her clothes and was still flowing, though slower now. Dragged out his old combat. The supplies were 20 years old, designed for human soldiers, not refugees. But biology was biology. Blood was blood. A wound was a wound. "This will hurt," he warned her. "I know pain," she said. Her voice was steady even though her hands were shaking. He cleaned the wound with antiseptic. She did not scream, but he saw her fingers dig into the armrest of the chair. He used a cauterizing tool to seal the smaller blood vessels, then closed the larger wound with surgical adhesive. It was not pretty work, but it would hold. "You have done this before," said when he finished. "Yes." "You were a soldier." "Yes." She was quiet for a moment. Her dark eyes studied him, taking in the prosthetic arm, the lines on his face, the careful way he moved. Knew that look. She was trying to figure out if he was dangerous. "We were told to fear human soldiers," she said finally. "They said you were brutal, without mercy." "Some of us were," admitted. "War does not bring out the best in people." "Yet you helped us." Did not know how to answer that, so he did not try. He stood up and went to check on the little girl. Her name was Myra, the boy told him. The boy's name was. He was not 8 years old as had guessed, but 11. Aged differently than humans. He looked young, but his eyes were old, the way children's eyes became old when they had seen too much. "She is still cold," said. "She will not wake up." "Her body is fighting," said. "It needs time. She is strong." "How do you know?" "She survived the crash. She survived the storm. That takes strength." Considered this. His grip on his sister's hand tightened. "Our father was strong," he said quietly. "He did not survive." Felt something twist in his chest. He knew better than to ask questions, but kept talking, the words spilling out like water through a broken dam. "The hegemony came to our world 6 months ago. They said we were being relocated. That was the word they used. Relocated, but we knew what it meant. We had heard stories, the labor camps, the processing facilities." His voice was flat, mechanical, like he was reciting facts from a textbook. "My father had a small ship, a trading vessel. He said we would run. We would find somewhere safe." "What happened?" "They caught us at the orbital checkpoint. My father told us to hide. He went to talk to the soldiers. He said he would make them understand." His jaw tightened. "We heard the shot from where we were hiding. Mother got us to an escape pod. We have been running ever since." Sat down heavily in the chair across from the couch. He looked at this boy who had watched his father die, who had spent 6 months fleeing across the galaxy, who was now sitting in a stranger's cabin trying to keep his little sister alive through sheer force of will. "I am sorry," said. The words felt weak, useless, but they were all he had. "Everyone is sorry," said. "Sorry does not change anything." "No, it does not." They sat in silence. The fire crackled. Outside, the storm continued its assault on the cabin, wind screaming through the trees. But inside there was warmth. There was light. There was the steady sound of breathing. Fell asleep in the chair, exhaustion finally winning over fear. Covered her with a blanket. He noticed how thin she was, how the bones of her wrists stood out sharp beneath her skin. They had not been eating well, he realized. Maybe not eating at all. He went to the kitchen and took stock of his supplies. He had planned for 1 person. Now he had 4. The math was not good. If the storm lasted more than a few days, they would be in trouble. He made soup anyway. The same canned soup he had been eating, stretched thin with extra water and whatever vegetables he could find. He brought a bowl too. "Eat," he said. Looked at the soup suspiciously. "What is it?" "Food, Earth food. It will not hurt you." "We cannot pay you." "I did not ask for payment." "Everyone asks for payment, eventually." Crouched down so he was level with the boy. "Listen to me. You are in my home. You are under my protection. That means I feed you, I keep you warm, and I do not ask for anything in return. That is how it works. Understand?" Stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he took the bowl. He sniffed it, tasted it, and then began eating quickly, desperately, like someone who did not know when their next meal would come. Brought soup to when she woke. She ate more carefully, saving half for later out of habit. He had to tell her twice that there would be more. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. "You crashed near my home. What was I supposed to do?" "Leave us, many would." "I am not many." "No," she agreed, studying him again with those dark, thoughtful eyes. "You are not." The little girl, Myra, woke up on Christmas Eve. Was dozing in his chair when he heard the small voice. He opened his eyes to find her sitting up on the couch, looking around the cabin with huge, confused eyes. When she saw, she gasped and pressed back against the cushions. "It is okay," said quickly, taking her hand. "He is a friend, he helped us. We are safe." "Where is Mother?" "I am here." Limped over to the couch and gathered her daughter into her arms. She held Myra tight, pressing her face into the girl's hair, her shoulders shaking with silent tears. Watched them for a moment. Then he quietly stood and went to the kitchen to give them privacy. He found himself standing at the window looking out at the snow. The storm was still fierce, but something had shifted inside him. The cabin did not feel empty anymore. It felt full. Too full, maybe. Crowded with lives he had not planned for, needs he did not know how to meet. But also warm, also alive, also something other than quiet and alone. Caught his reflection in the dark glass. He barely recognized the man looking back at him. That man had worry in his eyes. That man had purpose in the set of his shoulders. That man looked almost human again. He turned away from the window and began to plan for Christmas. The solitary veteran intended to spend Christmas alone, until a destitute alien woman showed up with her children. Part 3: Shelter from the Storm. The storm trapped them inside for 3 days. 3 days of howling wind and falling snow and a world that had shrunk to the size of a cabin. 3 days of learning to share space with strangers. Discovered that children, even alien children, were loud. Myra recovered quickly once she was warm and fed. Within a day she was exploring every corner of the cabin, asking questions about everything she saw. "What is this? Why do you have this? What does this do?" Her English was better than her mother's, picked up from entertainment broadcasts during their months of running. She found his books and demanded to know what they were. Real paper was rare now, even on Earth. Most people read on screens. But like the weight of pages, the smell of old ink, the way a book felt in his hands. "These are stories," he explained. "What kind of stories?" "All kinds, adventures, mysteries, love stories, stories about people who lived long ago." "Will you read one to me?" Had not read aloud to anyone since he was a young man, reading reports to his commanding officers. But Myra looked up at him with those big dark eyes, and he found himself reaching for a book of fairy tales his grandmother had left behind. He read to her about a girl who got lost in the woods and found a house made of candy. Myra listened with her mouth open, fascinated and horrified. The old woman wanted to eat her, she asked when he finished. "Yes." "That is terrible." But the girl was clever, she escaped. "Humans have strange stories," Myra declared, but she asked for another one. Was harder to reach. He stayed close to his mother and sister, watching with suspicious eyes. He was polite but distant, answering questions with as few words as possible, recognized the behavior. He had seen it in young soldiers, the ones who had learned that trust was dangerous. But on the second day, noticed prosthetic arm. They were sitting by the fire, Myra asleep between them, had gone to rest. The cabin was quiet except for the crack of burning wood. "How did you lose it?" asked suddenly. Looked at the metal arm. He flexed the fingers, watching the synthetic joints move. "Plasma fire," he said, "during the war." "The Hegemony War." "Yes." "You fought against them." "I did." Was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question that knew was coming. Did you win? Humanity won. We pushed them back, but winning a war is not the same as ending one. The hegemony is still out there, still doing what they do, just more careful about it now. They destroyed my world, said. The words were flat, hard. They killed my father, and nobody stopped them. Your people won the war, but you did not stop them. Felt the accusation like a knife. He wanted to argue, to explain that politics were complicated, that humanity could not fight every battle, that sometimes you had to accept terrible things because the alternative was worse. But looking at this boy who had lost everything, he could not find the words. You are right, he said instead. We did not stop them, and I am sorry. Stared at him. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise maybe, or confusion. He had expected excuses, realized. He had not expected agreement. Sorry does not bring back my father, said, but his voice was softer now. No, nothing can, but you can carry him with you. The things he taught you, the person he helped you become, that part of him lives as long as you do. Is that what you do, carry them with you? Thought about 30 soldiers, their faces, their voices, the way they laughed, the way they fought, the way they died. Every day, he said. They sat in silence after that, but something had changed. The wall between them had grown a little thinner. On Christmas Eve, realized he had nothing for the children. It was a strange thought. He had not cared about Christmas in years. It was just another day, another mark on the calendar. But now there were children in his home, children who had lost everything, children who deserved something good. He searched the cabin for ideas. He found old tools in a box under his bed, carving knives, sandpaper, blocks of wood his grandfather had saved for projects never finished. Had not carved anything since he was a boy. His grandfather had taught him, patient afternoons spent shaping wood into animals and toys. He remembered the old man's hands guiding his, the smell of pine shavings, the satisfaction of watching something emerge from nothing. He started that night, working by firelight while the others slept. His prosthetic hand was steady enough for rough cuts, but the detail work required his remaining flesh hand. It was slow and clumsy at first, but muscle memory returned gradually. By midnight he had carved a small wolf for, rough and simple but recognizable. He started on a bird for Myra. You do not sleep. Looked up, stood in the doorway of the bedroom, wrapped in a blanket, watching him. I sleep, he said, just not much. She walked carefully to the chair across from him and sat down. The firelight made her opalescent skin shimmer like water. The nightmares, she said, it was not a question. Yes. I have them too, since we left home. I close my eyes and I hear the shot. I see's face when he understood what had happened. She pulled the blanket around her shoulders. Some nights I am afraid to sleep. Kept carving. The knife moved smoothly now, shaping feathers from wood. It gets easier, he said, with time. Does it? Sometimes, other times it just gets different. The dreams change. The pain changes, but it never goes away completely. That is not very comforting. No, but it is honest. He paused, looking at her. Your husband, what was his name? She smiled, sad and soft. He was a trader, bought goods from one system, sold them in another. Not exciting work, but honest. He used to say the universe was too big to stay in one place. Her smile faded. He was right, just not in the way he meant. He sounds like a good man. He was too good, maybe. He always believed people would be reasonable if you just talked to them, even at the checkpoint, even when I told him to run. She wiped her eyes. He was wrong, but I loved him for believing it. Finished the bird and held it up to the light. A small thing, simple but pretty. Wings spread like it was about to fly. Why did you save us? Asked again. The truth this time. Set down the bird. He looked at the fire for a long moment. 20 years ago I led 30 soldiers into battle. I was supposed to bring them home, 23 of them died because I made the wrong choices, because I was not fast enough, smart enough, good enough. He picked up the wolf, turning it over in his hands. I have spent 20 years trying to forget their faces, building walls, hiding from everyone and everything because I could not stand to be responsible for anyone else. And then we crashed near your home. And then you crashed near my home. He looked at her. I heard you in the storm, and I knew I could save you or let you die. And I realized that I had been letting people die for 20 years, hiding behind my walls while the universe kept breaking. So you saved us to make yourself feel better. No, I saved you because you needed saving, but I realized something else. The walls do not protect me. They just make me alone, and being alone is not the same as being safe. Studied him for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched his prosthetic hand, her fingers light on the cold metal. You are not what I expected, she said softly, from a human soldier. What did you expect? Someone less broken, someone less kind. Had no answer for that, but for the first time in years, he did not feel the need to hide. They sat together by the fire until dawn, not speaking, just existing in the same space. Two broken people finding shelter from their own private storms. And outside, the snow finally began to slow. The solitary veteran intended to spend Christmas alone, until a destitute alien woman showed up with her children. Part 4, Christmas Morning. Myra woke first on Christmas morning, heard her small feet padding across the wooden floor before he opened his eyes. He had fallen asleep in his chair, the fire reduced to glowing embers. She whispered loudly, shaking his arm, "Wake up, there is something on my pillow." He opened his eyes. Myra stood before him, holding the carved wooden bird in both hands like it was made of gold. Her dark eyes were huge with wonder. "What is it?" she asked. "A bird, I made it for you." "You made it yourself for me?" "Yes." She stared at the bird, then she did something that caught him completely by surprise. She threw her arms around his neck and hugged him tight. Froze. He could not remember the last time someone had hugged him. The sensation was strange and uncomfortable and oddly wonderful all at once. His prosthetic arm hung awkwardly at his side, but his other hand came up slowly and patted her back. "Thank you," Myra said into his shoulder. "It is the most beautiful thing I have ever had." "You are welcome," he managed. She released him and ran to show her mother, chattering in rapid. Watched her go, feeling something warm unfold in his chest. It hurt a little, like blood returning to a numb limb, but it was a good kind of hurt. Found his wolf sitting on the arm of the couch. He picked it up and examined it carefully, running his fingers over the carved fur, the tiny ears, the pose of alertness that had worked so hard to capture. He did not say anything, but he looked at across the room and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, recognition, one soldier to another. Slipped the wolf into his pocket, where it would stay for years to come. Made breakfast, pancakes, from a recipe his grandmother had taught him long ago. Real pancakes, not the synthetic stuff, made with flour and eggs and milk he had been saving for a special occasion. They had never had earth food before. Myra took one bite and her eyes went wide. "This is amazing," she declared. "This is the greatest human invention, not spaceships, not weapons, this." Even smiled at that, the first real smile had seen from him. They ate together at the small kitchen table, 4 people crowded into a space meant for one. Myra talked constantly, asking questions about Earth, about snow, about why humans celebrated Christmas. Did his best to explain, but the truth was he had forgotten most of the reasons himself. It was just something his family had always done, a tradition passed down through generations. We had a festival in the winter too," said. "We called it the Gathering. Families would come together and share food and tell stories of their ancestors." "Can we do that?" Myra asked. "Can we tell stories?" So they did. told stories of crystal forests and singing rivers and cities that floated on clouds, told a story his father used to tell about a clever trader who outsmarted a greedy king, even shared a story, an old earth tale about a man who was visited by three spirits on Christmas Eve and learned to be kind again. For a few hours the cabin was warm with something had forgotten existed: laughter, connection, the simple joy of being together. Then the radio crackled. Walked to the emergency receiver and listened to the broadcast. The blizzard was clearing. Roads would be passable by tomorrow. All citizens were advised to check on their neighbors and report any storm damage. He turned off the radio and stood there for a moment, staring at the wall. "What is wrong?" asked. "The storm is ending. Roads will be clear tomorrow." He heard her sharp intake of breath. The children had gone quiet. "The refugee center," said. "In Seattle. That is where we were going when we crashed. They will process us there, give us temporary housing, eventually find us somewhere to settle." "That sounds good," said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, flat, empty. "Yes, it is good. It is what we hoped for." She paused. "We should leave tomorrow, before we impose on your kindness any longer." "You are not imposing." "We are. You wanted to be alone. We took that from you." Turned to face her. Myra had pressed herself against her mother's side, the wooden bird clutched to her chest, stood slightly apart, his hand in his pocket where the wolf hid. "Wanting something and needing it are different things," said slowly. "I wanted to be alone, but maybe I did not need it as much as I thought." The words hung in the air. He was not sure what he meant by them. He was not sure of anything anymore. That night could not sleep. Found him sitting by the fire again, watching the flames. "I used to do this with my father," said without turning around. "Watch the fire." He said it helped him think. Sat down beside him. The fire popped and crackled, sending sparks up the chimney. "What are you thinking about?" "Tomorrow, the refugee center. What happens next?" Pulled the wooden wolf from his pocket and turned it over in his hands. "We will be processed, given numbers, put in a room with strangers. Eventually they will find us a place to live, somewhere humans do not want, a planet on the edge of nowhere." "That is not certain." "It is what happens to refugees. I have seen it. We are problems to be managed, not people to be helped." His voice was bitter, old beyond his years. "Your people won the war, but you did not win it for us. You won it for yourselves. Everyone else is just lucky to be allowed to exist." Did not argue, he could not. There was too much truth in the boy's words. "When the hegemony came," continued, "I tried to help my father at the checkpoint. I tried to go with him to talk to the soldiers. He pushed me back. He said I had to protect my mother and sister. He said that was my job now." The boy's voice cracked. "I could not save him. I was too small, too weak, too afraid. And now we will go to the refugee center, and I will keep being too small and too weak to do anything. And someday, maybe, we will find a home. But it will not be our home. It will just be a place where we are allowed to stay." Sat in silence for a long moment. He thought about 30 soldiers, about a wife who left, about years of hiding, years of running from ghosts, years of convincing himself that being alone was the same as being safe. "I could not save my people either," he said finally. 30 soldiers. I was their sergeant. I was supposed to bring them home. What happened? I made mistakes, bad decisions. I was not good enough and they paid for it." He looked at the fire. "I have spent 20 years carrying that weight, believing that I failed them, that I should have died instead." "Does it stop hurting?" "No, it never stops, but you learn to carry it. And sometimes, if you are lucky, you find people worth carrying it for." Looked at him. In the firelight his eyes glistened. "How do you know when you have found them?" Reached out and put his hand on the boy's shoulder. The gesture felt awkward, unfamiliar, but also right. "You feel it," he said, "when the thought of losing them scares you more than the thought of being hurt again." They sat together until the fire burned low. 2 soldiers, one old and one young, keeping watch against the dark, and felt something he had not felt in 20 years. Fear. Not the old fear, the fear of responsibility and loss and failure. A new fear, sharper and more terrible. The fear of letting them go. The solitary veteran intended to spend Christmas alone, until a destitute alien woman showed up with her children. Part 5, New Year, New Purpose. December 27th, the roads were clear. Loaded his old truck with supplies for the journey. Blankets, food, water. The refugee center in Seattle was 8 hours away through mountain roads, and he wanted to be prepared for anything. They had nothing to pack. They had arrived with only the clothes on their backs, and those had been too damaged by the crash to keep. Had given them spare clothes from his closet, human clothes too big for their slender frames, and they wore them without complaint. The drive was quiet. Myra fell asleep against her mother's shoulder within the first hour, sat in the back, watching the snow-covered mountains roll past, the wooden wolf clutched tight in his hand. Sat in the front, her dark eyes fixed on the road ahead. Drove. He did not know what to say, so he said nothing. The refugee center appeared as the sun began to set, a collection of gray buildings at the edge of the city. It had been a warehouse complex once, before first contact. Now it housed thousands of displaced beings from across the galaxy, all of them waiting for somewhere better. Parked the truck and helped them gather their few belongings. A human official met them at the entrance, a tired woman with kind eyes who spoke gently and moved efficiently. "Refugees, we have been expecting you. Well, not you specifically, but in general, we have many," she looked at. "Are you their sponsor?" "No, just someone who found them." "I see. Well, we will take it from here. Processing takes about 3 weeks. Housing is dormitory style, 12 to a room. The children will be enrolled in refugee schooling. Mrs. Mrs. will be evaluated for work placement." The official smiled reassuringly. "It is not glamorous, but it is safe, and eventually we will find you somewhere permanent." Somewhere permanent. Thought about what it said. A planet on the edge of nowhere. A place where they were allowed to stay, not a place they could call home. Turned to. Her face was composed, dignified, but he could see the exhaustion behind her eyes. The weight of months of running, finally catching up with her. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. You saved our lives." "Anyone would have done the same." "No, they would not. You are a good man, Cole, better than you know." Myra hugged his leg. "Goodbye, I will keep the bird forever. I will never forget you." His throat felt tight. "Goodbye, Myra. Take care of your mother and brother." Stood apart, shoulders squared, trying to be brave. Walked over to him. "Take care of them," said. "I will. And take care of yourself. Do not forget what I told you. Some things are worth carrying." Nodded. His eyes were bright, but he did not cry. He was done with crying. Turned and walked back to his truck. His boots crunched on the snow. His heart beat slow and heavy in his chest. He reached the truck, put his hand on the door, stood there. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The refugee center hummed with activity, thousands of lives in motion, all of them waiting and hopping and trying to survive. Thought about his cabin, his books, his whiskey, the comfortable weight of solitude. He thought about 30 soldiers who died because he could not save them, about a wife who left because he could not let them go, about 20 years of hiding from everyone and everything because he was afraid. He thought about Myra's arms around his neck, the first embrace he had felt in years, about's quiet trust, hard-won and precious, about's dark eyes seeing him clearly for the first time in decades. He thought about a little girl, declaring pancakes the greatest human invention. Took his hand off the door. He turned around. They had not gone inside yet. Stood at the entrance, holding Myra's hand, looking back at him. Stood beside her, his face unreadable. Walked back to them. Each step felt like climbing a mountain. Each step felt like the hardest thing he had ever done. He stopped in front of, his mouth was dry. His heart was pounding. He had faced enemy fire with more calm than this. "Come back with me," he said. "Blink to what?" "Come back to the cabin, all of you, stay with me." The words tumbled out rough and awkward. "I know it is not much, just a small house in the middle of nowhere, but it is warm, it is safe. And you would not be strangers in a dormitory. You would be—" He trailed off, not sure how to finish. "Family," whispered. "Something like that." He looked at her, at the children, at these three people who had crashed into his life and broken through every wall he had built. "I know I am not your people. I know I cannot replace what you lost, but I can give you a home, if you want one." Stared at him. Her eyes were shining now, tears threatening to spill over. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this?" "Because I have been alone for 20 years. Because I have spent my whole life trying not to care about people, trying not to let anyone close, trying to protect myself from losing anyone ever again." He swallowed hard. "And then you crashed near my home, and I realized that protecting myself from loss just meant I had nothing left to lose. It meant I was already lost." He looked at, who was watching him with something like wonder. "I cannot change the past," said. "I cannot bring back the people I failed, but I can choose what happens next. And I choose this. I choose you, all of you, if you will have me." Myra broke free from her mother's hand and ran too. She crashed into his legs and hugged him tight. "Yes," she said fiercely. "Yes, yes, yes." Looked at his mother. Something passed between them, a silent conversation in a language did not understand. Then nodded just once. Stepped forward. She reached out and took his hand, her slender fingers wrapping around his prosthetic. "You are a strange man, Cole," she said. "Broken and kind and stubborn beyond reason." "Is that a yes?" She smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen from her, and it transformed her whole face. "It is a yes." They drove back through the mountains as the stars came out. Myra fell asleep again, her head in her mother's lap, the wooden bird tucked under her chin. Stayed awake this time, watching the road unwind before them. He said quietly, "Yes. Thank you for coming back." "You are welcome. I will try to be useful. I can help with the cabin, with the wood and the cooking and whatever else needs doing." "I know you will. And I will protect them, Mother and Myra, like my father asked." Glanced at him in the mirror. "You are not alone in that anymore. We will protect them together." Nodded. He turned to look out the window again, but saw the small smile on his face. They reached the cabin near midnight. The snow had started falling again, soft and gentle. Carried Myra inside and put her to bed, tucked her in while started a fire. Later, when the children were asleep and the cabin was warm and sat by the fire together, she rested her head on his shoulder. He put his arm around her, the prosthetic one that could not feel warmth. "I never expected this," she said quietly. "When we left, I thought we would be running forever. I never thought we would find somewhere to stop." "Neither did I," admitted. "When I moved out here, I thought I was done. Done with people, done with caring, done with everything. I thought the best I could do was fade away quietly. And now I think maybe I was wrong. Maybe fading away quietly is not the best anyone can do. Maybe the best we can do is keep living, keep trying, keep letting people in, even when it scares us." Lifted her head and looked at him. Her dark eyes reflected the firelight. "You are a good man, Cole." "I am trying to be. That is all any of us can do." 1 year later, the cabin was different. There were children's drawings on the walls, strange alien flowers and human mountains rendered in bright colors. A second bedroom had been added, built by and together over the summer. The kitchen smelled of spices mixed with old earth recipes, experiments that sometimes worked and sometimes ended in laughter. Still had nightmares. He probably always would. But now, when he woke gasping in the dark, there was a small hand reaching for his. Myra, who somehow always knew when he needed her. She would climb into his lap and show him her drawings, chattering about her day until the shaking stopped. Had found work as a translator, helping newly arrived refugees navigate the confusing maze of human bureaucracy. Was thriving in school, top of his class in mathematics, teaching the human children strategy games at lunch. Myra had declared that she wanted to be a space veterinarian and practiced on every creature she could find. They were not his family by blood, they were not even his species, but they were his and he was theirs, and that was all that mattered. On Christmas morning, Myra woke everyone at dawn by jumping on beds and singing a song she had made up herself. They ate pancakes together, the ones had taught to make. They exchanged gifts, simple things wrapped in paper and given with love. Later, when the chaos had settled and the children were playing with their new toys, stood at the window and watched the snow fall, came to stand beside him. She took his hand, the flesh one this time. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About how much can change in a year, about how scared I was to let you in, about how glad I am that I did." She squeezed his hand. "Me too." From across the room, Myra looked up and grinned at them. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, little bird." Smiled. It was a small thing, just a curve of lips, but it felt like the end of winter, like the first warm day of spring, like coming home after being lost for a very long time. And in that moment, watching his strange, impossible family fill his cabin with light and noise and love, finally understood what humanity really was. Not the ferocity that had won the war, not the stubbornness that had pushed them across the stars, not the strength that the galaxy feared. It was this, the simple, irrational, deeply human choice to open your door to strangers, to turn back when walking away would be easier, to let yourself love again, even when you knew how much it could hurt. That was the greatest thing about humans. Not that they could fight, that they could heal. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, the fire crackled warm and bright. And Cole, who had intended to spend Christmas alone, sat down with his family to watch the flames together. The end.